ما در هفته پیش درباره دل شکسته صحبت کردیم که دل شکسته یکی از بهترین عامل قبول شدن تبیلا انسان که انسان اگر تبیلا با دل شکسته بخونه تبیلا حتما قبول میشه. و این سوال شد که آیا این غمگینی نیست، افسردگی نیست؟ دل شکسته آیا کسی که دلش شکسته باشه این افسرده نیست، غمگین نیست؟ این غمگین بودن خیلی بده. یکی از بدترین صفات اینه که انسان غمگینه، خوشحال نیست و غصه میخوره، افسرده است، احساس غمگینی میکنه که اینو نداره، زندگیش رو برها نیست و خوشبخت نیست، سعادتمند نیست و هیچ اشتیاقی به تورا و مسوات نداره و بی‌حوصله است. این دل شکسته اینطور نیست. دل شکسته یعنی چه فرقی داره؟ چه فرقی هست بین دل شکسته و غمگینی، افسردگی؟ چه فرقی هست؟ بعد دانیم که دل شکسته انسان از یک طرف خوشحاله که حسن برخ رو عبادت میکنه، حسن برخ بهش این خوشبختی داده که بیاد و به حضور تفیلا بخونه، درخواست بکنه، مسوار انجام بده. ولی از طرف دیگه دل شکسته از این که چقدر این عوانات داشته، حسن برخ را عصبانی کرده، از فرمانهای حسن را سرپیچی کرده. بنابراین با چه رویی، با چه سربلندی بیاد به حسن برخ تفیلا بکنه، از این درخواست بکنه که آرزوها را برآورده بکنه؟ با چه رویی؟ این همه حسن برخ را عصبانی کرده، از دستوراتش سرپیچی کرده، بیاد تفیلا بکنه که من اینو میخوام، اونو میخوام، به من اینو بده. بعد این از خجالت بستی بره زیر زمین از خجالت. این و چقدر در آموختن تورا، در دانش تورا چقدر کسی داره، چقدر مسوهایی باید انجام نمیکنه و نسبت به بزرگان اسرائیل چقدر پسته، چقدر در درجه کمی پایینی قرار داره. اگر نگاه کنه که این همه تورا هست، از اینا چی میدونه؟ چقدر؟ 1 میلیون میدونه این همه تورا هست. تورا، نبییم، کتابیم، مشنا، گمارا، هلاخوت، زوهر، قبلا، این همه هست. از این چقدر میدونه؟ 1 میلیون میدونه. این میدونه دل شکسته، این احساس میکنه هیچ نداره و اصلا هیچ مناسب، این خود هیچ سزاوار نیست، این لیاقت نداره که بیاد درگاه برای تفیلا بخونه، لیاقت نداره. کی اصلا چه امکان داره؟ این دل شکسته. از یک طرف خوشحاله که برخ بهش این سعادت داده که به تفیلا بخونه، خیلی خوب، خوشا به حالش، ولی با چه رویی، با چه احساسی، با چه جسارتی بیاد این کارا بکنه؟ برای اینکه ما این روشن‌تر بشه موضوع، پادشاهی که برای اینکه برای خوراک بیارن، غذا بیارن و اون هر چیزی لازم داره بهشون برایش آماده بکنن. این یه روز گفت به یک نوکری که کارش چی بوده؟ رفتگر بیاد حیات را جارو بکنه، بیاد دستشویی را تمیز بکنه، این چقدر پسته، چقدر ناچیزه، بیاد بگه تو امروز بیا برای من خدمت بکن، تو بیا در تالار من اونجا بیا برای من خوراک بیار و اینا بیار اونو بیار. اون چقدر خوشحاله، چقدر شاده، من چی هستم که بیار پادشاه من از من دعوت کرد من بیام برای خوراک بیارم. این همه خدمتکار پر با محترم و عظیم الشأن داره، این همه درجه دارن، همه سواد دارن، معلومات دارن، اینها نه من بیام، من کی هستم؟ من رفدگر هستم. این میشه دل شکسته. از این طرف خوشحاله که پادشاه اون همه خدمتکارهای عالی درجه و بارا مقام را گذاشته کنار، این رفتگرم میاد تو بیا برای من خدمت بکن. چقدر خوشحاله، چقدر شاده، ولی خود چه احساسی میکنه؟ من کی هستم؟ من فقط یک رفتگر هستم. من اصلا چقدر نسبت به این خدمتکار پادشاه چقدر من پست هستم. از یک طرف خوشحال، طرف این دلش شکست زد، این میشه دلش شکسته.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Normally our classes are on Tuesday nights, but because of the Hagim, we pushed it over to tonight and also last week because the same Tuesday, Wednesday was Yom Tov. But normally it's every Tuesday night. So if you guys want to come, please. Tuesday night is normally the night, and if you're not in the WhatsApp group, let me know. I can add you to the WhatsApp group so you know exactly what time it is, and the recordings get posted in there as well. So tonight, Harav is speaking a little bit about having a broken heart and how to also get your prayers accepted for whatever you want. Parnasa, whatever, Shiduchim, Refuah Shalema, whatever you guys are praying for. Harav says the best way, with a guaranteed acceptance of your tefillah to get answered, is to pray with a broken heart. Now, the question was asked last week. I think one of the women asked, they're like, I don't understand though, if we're gonna have a broken heart, doesn't that mean we're depressed and we didn't have a shiur about being happy? So isn't that like a contradiction of itself? To have a broken heart, but at the same time, don't be depressed, don't be sad. So Harav is gonna explain this a little bit more. Harav is saying like sadness is more like having depression, anxiety all the time, always down, depressed, doesn't look forward to anything in this world, not happy, right? So now Harav is saying, well, people think, well, isn't that a broken heart? So they always will be yourself sad, down, look down, not have any hosala to do anything, not have any patience for anything. Isn't that considered a broken heart? What's the difference? Harav is saying no. A broken heart, broken heart means on one side, you're happy in a sense that you're able to go in front of Hashem and pray. We have that ability for teshuvah, for praying. But on the other side, you have a broken heart, like you have a sense of I'm nothingness to come in front of the world's greatest king. I've done so many averot, I've done so many sins. How can I come, somebody who's done so many sins, in front of the most pure of the pure, and pray and ask for things, and ask for money or whatever, shalom bayit, whatever business or whatever I need. So, Harav is just saying, like, people think, you need to have this in your mind, that I've done so many sins compared to all the Gedolim. I don't even know one millionth of the Torah that the pure rabbis know, and I'm gonna go in front of Hashem, and I'm gonna start asking and demanding for things. Broken heart basically is a feeling, the opposite of having ghurur, the opposite of having pride and ego. Going in with the sense of the exact opposite of just having a sense of I'm nothing. I've done so many sins. I don't deserve to come here, but with a very humble approach, coming in and asking for whatever you need. I was giving an example. So there was a king. With the king, they bring him food. There's servants or whatever. They bring him anything he needs. If he wants fruit, he wants food, whatever. So one day the king goes and tells one of the workers that was there, kind of like a maid, cleaning and sweeping the floors and sweeping doing cleaning and sweeping and mopping and stuff. And then he goes and he tells that guy, hey, today you're going to come in my castle, and you're going to bring me food, and you're going to bring me, we're going to basically bring me everything that I need. So that maid or that cleaning guy, how does he think to himself? He thinks, wow, I'm a nobody, I just sweep the floors here, and the king is coming to me and asking me to come and bring him the food to his table and to his palace and all these things. There's so many other people that are higher than me in the castle next to the king, and out of all the people, he comes and chooses me, this little guy who's just sweeping the floors. Harav is saying, exactly, that's considered a broken heart. It's not necessarily depressed, but it's walking in with a sense of humility, nothingness. I'm nothing. Walking in with your head kind of down type of situation.
و طبق این موضوع ما میفهمیم این موضوع که ربنا عریضل به ربنا بشه قردوی را علیه السلام هم اینا فرمودن که اگر اشخاص میدونستن که کسی را که خار میکنن بهش توهین میکنن خجالت میدن چقدر بهش خوبی میکنن مردم میرفتن توی خیابانها توی کوچه ها توی بازارها دنبال کسی میگشتن که بیاد اینا را خار بکنه توهین بکنه در جور مردم خجالت بده چرا؟ چون در این صورت دل اینا شکسته میشد دل شکسته شد هر تبلا که بخونن متجام میشه قبول میشه بنابراین اگر کسی حتی بین در خونه بین زن و شوهر یکمی بحث شد شوهر به زن یا زن به شوهر گفت این عقل تو از یه بچه 8 سالم کمتره اگر هیچ نگه هیچ به جوان نده با همون احساسی که عقل من از بچه 8 سال کمتره تبیلا بخونه تبیلا این حتما قبول میشه پس این دیگه از بهترین عامل شلوم بیت صلح خربدچیه که اگر دیگری به انسان توهین کرد از این وضعش نیاد زنین ترین داد نزنه این هوا چی میزنی تو خودت هستی تو از من بدتر هستی تو نادان هستی تو عقل کمه تو اصلا عقل نداری من عقل کمه تو اصلا عقل نداری این حرفا میزنه چی می آخرش چیه اینم جواب میده با این جواب و مرافع و عصبانی و ازم غر میکنند و این زندگی تلخ میشه ولی وقتی که این موضوع دل شکسته انسان چقدر این اهمیت داره چقدر ارزش داره چقدر برای تبیلا خوندن این فایده داره حتی اگر انسان هیچ طورایی نداره میسوات چقدر داره خیلی کم ولی اگر دل شکسته باشه تبیلا این حتما قبول میشه و چه بهتر پس این که میگه تو عقل تو از بچه 8 سال کمتره چیکار کرده بهش خوبی کرده احسان خیر بزرگ کرده کاری کرده که تبیلا این قبول بشه درگاه تو تبیلا بخونه که بران کس شفا بده کنه سلامتی بده و روزی بده به من ثروت بده به من مرا از این دردسر نجات بده گل اسرائیل همینطور الاخر بعد خوشبختی واقعی اینه و ما در گمارا در تعلیق ما می‌بینیم که یک وقت در اسرائیل در بابل این باران بند آمده بود باران نبود بعد چه تبیلا میخوندن هیچ آسمان خشک بی ابر گرم رب رحمان که سربر قوم اسرائیل بود رب رحمان یکی از بزرگترین امرائیم محسوب میشه این هر تبیلا خوندن هیچ رحمان گفت بیایید مرا شلاق بزنید من میشنم جایی بعد من شلاق بزنید و این شلاق که بزنید دل من میشکنه دل من که شکسته شد من تبیلا میخونم و چون برای جا میده همه کار کردن شلاق زدن دل شکسته شد این رب رحمان سربر اسرائیل بیان شلاق بزنن دل شکسته شد دلش خیلی نرم شد تبیلا خون بولی بارون آمد پس ببینید چقدر رب رحمان این همه تورا خونده بود این همه زهود داشت این هم میثوات کرد این همه درجه عالی بود هیچی هر طور میخواد بانده میشه فقط بعد اینکه دل این شکسته شد تبیلا این درگاهش من رسید و بارون آمد و چقدر خوب و یه نوع دل شکسته اینه که انسان باید بدونه که هیچی نداره. در ظاهر میفرمان که در تیلیم گفته شده تبیلال موشه، تبیلال داوید، تبیلال عنی. در میفرمان که تبیلال عنی از همه مهمتره. تبیلال عنی از تبیلای موشه تبیلای داوید مهمتره. البته موشه ربنا مثلا اونم تبیلا اینم خودش عنی محسوب میکرد. توضیح میدیم چطور موشه ربنا مثلا درباره مثلا چیز گفته شده و ایش موشه اناب میکنه مثلا پناه آدم. یعنی چی؟ موشه ربنا این همه معجزه کرد، این همه ظهور داشت، من به خود موشه ربنا نازل میشد. موشه ربنا رفت آدمان تورا دریافت کرد. موشه ربنا مثلا نبی از همه نبی‌ها بالاتر بود، این هم معجزه کرد. بابد از همه افراد دنیا فروتن‌تر بود. در سفره چی میگه خیلی عجب و غریب که سفره مدرش همین در پرشت بردازها این رو فرماند که 8 گونه جذامی هست. جذام یه مرضی که انسان پوستش از چرک و دمل پر میشه و این خیلی منفوره. اصلا کسی رو بینه، هر کسی رو بینه خیلی بعدش میاد، خیلی نفرت میکنه و حالش خیلی رقت آوره. 8 گونه جذامی هست، 8 گونه. یکی از این بدتر، این درجه اول اینطوره، درجه دوم از این بدتر، درجه دوم از این بدتر، درجه از این بدتر. همین 8 درجه، 8 درجه هشتم که این چقدر در نظر مردم منفوره و مردم خیلی نفرت دارن، متنفر هستن، نمیتونن تحمل بکنن. نقشش مشربن و جان مشرب مثلا از درجه هشتم جزامی هم این خودش را پستر میدونه. جان مشرب مثلا خودش را از بدترین پسترین درجه جزامی خود پستر میدونه. از این خودش از این شخص درجه هشتم جزامی خودش را پستر و منفورتر میدونه تا این اندازه. چطور امکان داره؟ مثلا برعکس این همه درجه داشت، این همه طور میدونه، این همه معجزه کرده بود، بعد برای نسبت برای چه باید گفته بشه که از همه مردمانیا مغرورتر بود. بله مغرورتر بود، چقدر مهمتره. برعکس از همه فروتنتر. و این توضیح باید بدیم که مجرب علیه السلام اینطور فکر میکرد که اگر پادشاهی به کسی پول قرض بده، به کسی $100 قرض بده، فقط $100، به کسی $100,000 قرض بده، کدام از این یک بیشتر به پادشاه خود مغرورتر میدونن؟ $100 یا $100,000؟ $100,000. اون کسی که از پادشاه $100,000 قرض گرفته این خودش را مغرور $100,000 میدونه، او حالا تا این برگردانه. کدام از این دو نفر خودشون پستر میدونن؟ این $100 یا $100,000؟ به $100,000 به پادشاه $100,000 مغروره. تا این بروزه چقدر طول میکشه؟ ولی $100 چیه؟ بعد یه ماه برمیگردن، تموم شد. پس کدام این از این دو نفر فروتن‌تر هستن و خودشون پستر میدونن، خودشون مغرورتر میدونن، کدام به پادشاه مدیونتر میدونن و همیشه در فکر هستن که بیشتر هر چه در برگردن؟ کدام؟ اون کسی که $100,000 قرض گرفته. همینطور مشرب سلام چه فکر میکرد که من عشان برای این همه من خوبی کرده، این همه من درجات داده، این همه من قدرت داده، به من طلا داده، هیچ کس مثل من نیست، هیچ کس مثل من عشان برای بهش خوبی نکرده. پس من از همه مردم دنیا نسبت به شما مغرورتر هستم. پس این بود که باید مشرف رمضان خود از همه بدتر بدونه. و ثانیاً این هشم داره این همه خوبی کرده، بعدی به درگاه مرخ بسیار بسیار شکر بکنه، بسیار بسیار محتاط باشه در گناه ها. اگر یک ذره کس باشه، این یک ذره برابر با هزاران ذرات مردم عامی. مردم عامی اشتباه این همه خوبی نکرده، این همه شون احسان نکرده، این همه علم و این همه روح القدس ندارن. پس اگر خطایی بکنن، کسی بکنن، چیز خیلی مهمی نیست. ولی مشرف رمضان با این همه درجه یه درجه کسی داشته باشه، اوه چقدر از همه پستره، از همه پایین‌تره. این بود که مشرف رمضان خود از همه پستر می‌دونست.
Okay. So, okay, sorry, that was a lot. So, according to this that we just spoke about before, about having the broken heart and the differences between the two of sadness and having a broken heart, the Arizal and I believe there's Harav Michela Kone. Goftin Arizal بود با یه
رابین موشه گردویرا الله تعالی.
رابین موشه
گردویرا یه شهری در اسپانیا، قرطبه شهر در اسپانیا. گردویرا یعنی از قرطبه میاد، از اهل قرطبه.
Okay, so the rabbi was from a certain town in Italy called Cordova, so they called him Rabbeinu, because he was from that town.
Ramchal?
No, Ramchal was Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lusat, different one. So if people, basically the Arizal, we know he lived about 600 years ago. Was like the closest thing that we had to like a Navi. The Arizal is like leader of Kabbalah. Anyways, they came and they said that if people knew the power that when someone gets embarrassed in public, how good it actually is for the person, people would go in the middle of the street and start paying people to say, come and embarrass me. That's what I was saying. He's saying if people just knew why? Because it would give them a broken heart, getting embarrassed. And once you get that broken heart, your tefillot get accepted 100%. No matter whatever you pray for. Whatever you pray for. 100% guaranteed acceptance rate. So for example, Harav says, like, if your wife turns around and tells you, you're so dumb, your brain is like an 8-year-old little kid. You don't understand anything. When she says that, if you don't answer, you don't say anything, you keep your mouth shut and you just walk away or whatever, just stay quiet, at that time, because you get embarrassed and you kept your mouth shut and it was very hard and you have a broken heart, whatever you pray for comes true. So now you have two options. One, you get called stupid or whatever, maybe you're dumb, your brain is like an 8-year-old. Yeah, you don't say anything, you gain that broken heart and whatever you pray for comes true. Or two, you turn around and tell her, I'm stupid, you're dumb, you're the have a brain of 8-year-old, and the answer's you, answers the whole thing. And then what happens, life just becomes bitter because there's no shalom bayit, you're just arguing all the time. You're dumb, no, you're dumb, 8-year-old brain, you have an 8-year-old brain, you don't know you have a dumb brain. It doesn't lead anywhere, there's no positive that comes out of that. So real happiness is being able to have your prayers answered and having shalom and not having machloket. So who cares about who cares about that stuff? So it says in Gemara Ta'anit in Bavel that at one point there was no rain. There was no rain. With all the praying that they did, nothing. Rav Nachman, I believe, there was a huge Amora, Harav was saying. Amora is like giants of Torah compared to anything that we have now. Amoras are on another level. Anyways, with all the praying that he did, rain wouldn't come. The land was dry, and back then, if there wasn't rain, there was no crops, there was no food, famine. That's how it was. There was no irrigation system. So anyways, what happened was he turned around. Rav Nachman said, "You know what?" He told the people in his town, take a belt out and hit me with the belt, and with that, I'll have a broken heart, and whatever I pray for, Hashem will answer. So they say, "We're gonna hit the rabbi." Okay, so yeah, the rabbi said, hit me. Okay, fine. They take a belt, they hit him with the belt. What happened was exactly what he said happened. He got hit with the belt, he got a broken heart, he prayed, immediately rain started coming after. So Harav is saying, also in Tehillim, it says there's Tefillat Ani, Tefillat David, Tefillat Moshe. Between these three, the highest level and the most important is Tefillat Ani. So Harav is saying, I don't understand. Tefillat Ani means poor person. David is David HaMelech. who wrote the whole Tehillim. And there's Moshe. Moshe was, we say in the 13 things that he was one of the highest. He's not one of the highest. He's the highest Navi, and there's will no one be as high as him. So, and I quote Harav saying this last time, that even when Mashiach comes, it's still not to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. So just keep that in mind. And then we're saying this poor person is better than Moshe Rabbeinu. How's that possible? How's it possible that a poor man is better than Moshe Rabbeinu? To feel more important, like, doesn't make sense. Moshe Rabbeinu went, took the Jews, the man came, he brought them the Torah, he went up to the Shamayim 40 days, Luchot, all this. He's the highest. How's it possible? So it says in, I believe, Ba'alotcha, that there's 8 different types of sicknesses, or like skin diseases, or like infection of the skin or something. 8 different levels. One being worse than the other. The level of sickness is, you get the sickness, apparently it's some sort of sickness where like it's an infection, and then it becomes really disgusting, and it starts oozing, and then people see you as nasty, and apparently like the 8th level is like no one even go in the same room. Smells, dirty, nasty, oozing out, infection, whatever. People will run away and be embarrassed. So Moshe Rabbeinu held himself as if he was the 8th level of that sickness, as if he was that infection. That people should be, he's scared to be around people because they're going to run away from him, because he holds himself that. So Harav is saying, how's that possible? How does Moshe Rabbeinu, who has he holding himself like an infection? Like, how does that work? Moshe should be the highest, not the opposite. Not that he should hold himself as the lowest. He should hold himself as the highest. So we need to explain. Moshe, we need to understand this, that Moshe thought like this because, Harav give an example. If someone goes and borrows $100 from the king and wants to pay him back, $100, okay, fine, a few days, a month, whatever, you'll pay him back. But if someone goes and he gets indebted to the king, and the king gives him $100,000, okay, as a comparison, that person who lent the $100,000 is obviously going to have more of an embarrassment, of a chejelat, of a sense of I owe you, you know what I mean, more to the king than the guy who borrowed $100. The guy borrowed $100 to pay him back in a couple of days. But the $100,000 guy, that guy is going to be, wow, I'll have so much more time. It's going to take a lot more time. Every time I see the king, I'm going to be, I have to hold myself things. It's embarrassing. I have a sense of I owe you. So basically, between the two, we all agree the 100K guy would have more of that sense. Moshe Rabbeinu thought the same exact way. He thought himself, Hashem gave me the most. I got the most from Hashem. Therefore, I have this most sense of I owe you $100,000, imagine, that he lent from the king. So he has that sense of I owe you so much more. So therefore, we learn from this, people with the highest neshamot, people with very, 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 very holy neshamot, a little bit goes a lot more longer way for them. Because if they feel a little bit of sin, it's much more for them because they owe so much, and they're like, how can I do sin? I borrowed so much, Hashem gave me so much. The smallest sin becomes more of a problem. The guy doesn't have any, he doesn't have anything from Hashem. Okay, so he sins. Okay, whatever. But people, Jews, us, we come so much more so that we have so much from Hashem that the smallest little sin, you should feel embarrassed for that smallest little sin. That's what Harav is trying to use as a comparison.
انتو ضرب فرمود که تیویلای آنی یعنی کسی که فقیر پولی نداره برای خوردن، برای خوراک و دل شکسته است، این تیویلای موشه، تیویلای داوید، این بیشتر قبول میشه. خب البته مسلمان اینم در خودش احساس انیوت ایجاد میکرد که چقدر ناچیزه. چرا؟ چون هر چی داره برای خودش نیست، برای هشم برخه. هیچ مال خودش نیست. سر دست چشم همه اون هشم برخه. هر علم طوری که داره برای خودش نیست، هشم برخ پیدا داده. یعنی خودش چی داره؟ هیچ نداره. خودش هیچ نداره و همه متعلق باشه. این بود که مثلا هیچ وقت به حالت غرور نمی اومد که هیچ نداره، چی بگه، چطور غرور بکنه. انسان اگر فکر بکنه، خوب فکر کنه که در واقع هیچی نداره، هر چیز هست برای استفاده، هیچ وقت غرور نمی کنه. چیه؟ خیلی عاقله، کی بهش عقل داده؟ کی بهش سر داده؟ چی مغز داده؟ چی فکر داده؟ همه مرخه، مال خودش نیست. ما فرض کنیم یه حمال که بهش دادن یک جعبه پر از الماس. چقدر ارزش چقدر داره؟ 10 میلیارد دلار. این حمال میره میگه من یکی از بزرگترین میزان دنیا هستم. چرا؟ من دارم یک جعبه حمل کنم که 10 میلیارد دلار ارزش داره. ما بهش میگیم تو چی میلیارد داری؟ تو حمال هستی. این همه پولی که هست مال توه. مال تو نیست، این مال صاحبشونه. تو اصلا هیچ نداری. تو همون حمالی که بودی هستی، همون فقیری که هستی. این همه پول ثروت مال که مال صاحبه، نه مال تو. همینطور انسان هر چی که عقل داره، هوش داره، ثروت داره، درجه داره، هر چی داره مال کیه؟ مال خودشه؟ نه، مال اشون مال بس جای اصلا هیچ جای تکبر نیست، جای غرور نیست. چه غروری؟ انسان اگر خوب فکر بکنه، اگر انسان عقلش سالم باشه هیچ وقت غرور نمیکنه، چون میدونه که هر چی داره همه متعلق به مرخه. بر چی چطور غرور بکنه؟ و بنابراین بس انسان این موضوع رو باستی در نظر بگیره که همیشه دلش شکسته باشه، از یه طرف خوشحال باشه، شاد باشه که شنورخ رو عبادت میکنه، خوشا به حالش، از این سعادت از این بیشتر نیست. از این طرف فکر کنه که من چقدر کس دارم، چقدر ناچیز هستم در مقابل بزرگان اسرائیل، چقدر من پست هستم، کوچیک هستم، ناچیز هستم. این با این احساس تفیلا بخونه واقعا تفیلاش قبول میشه. ولی بعد اینا میدونیم که بعد اوقات هست یه ترارا میاد برعکس. چی میکنه؟ میگه تو این همه عبون داری، این همه برخ را عصبانی کردی، این همه به گناه داری، عبون داری، تو بیا تفیلا بخونی. فایدهش چیه؟ عشان برای حتی بعدش میاد خیر بعدش میاد، اصلا نمیخواد حتی بیا تفیلا بخونی. برو آدم ولش کن، این مال تو نیست اصلا. تو تفیلا تو اصلا هیچ ارزش نداره، برای چی بخونی؟ عبادت وقت نیست. این همه چیه؟ اینها فریب های ترار که انسان را از تفیلا خوندن باز بداره. بعد انسان چی بگه در جواب این ترار؟ چی بگه؟ درسته من عبون کردم، من خیلی عصبانی کردم، خطا کردم، درسته. ولی چی؟ من تجربه میکنم، الان از همه گناه تجربه میکنم، بر خودم قبول میکنم که از این به بعد این گناه را مرتکب نشم و عشان را عصبانی نکنم. این فکر میکنه، این تجربه را میکنه، این اعتراف که بکنه، میگه من خطا کردم، گناه کردم، این گناه کردم، اون گناه کردم. در این صورت این میشه بعد تشوبه صدیق گمور. البته تشوبه این قبول میشه اگر واقعا از صمیم قلب پشیمان باشه. تفیلا این حتما متجاب میشه. بنابراین انسان هر وقت یه ترارا میخواد انسان را از تفیلا خوندن باز بداره، برای اینکه خیلی تو گناه کردی، تو کی هستی، عجب برای نمیخواد تفیلا رو گوش بکنه، عجب تو خیلی بعدش میاد، بل کن. اولا من درسته گناه که برای تجربه میکنم. موضوع دیگه هم که انسان را میتونه امیدوار بکنه چیه؟ در این صورت انسان چه حسنی داره، چه حسنی، چه نکته مثبتی داره. یک کسی هست که درسته عوانات زیاد داره ولی به مردم خوبی میکنه، احسان میکنه، اونا را به راه راست هدایت میکنه. داره خودش گناه زیاد ولی مردم دیگر را برای تو را میاره. این خودش میشه یک نکته بسیار عالی که وقتی اینو بدونه، این بهش امید میده، بهش وجه میده، شادی میده که تفیلا بخونه. از تفیلا خوندن این خودداری نکنه.
So Harav is saying, we said that the tefillah of the ani, the poor man's prayer was more important, more accepted than Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech, which David HaMelech wrote the entirety in there. So Harav is like, wait a second, we didn't understand this a little bit more. How's that possible? The poor man's prayer, Harav is saying, is with a broken heart. His prayer is more accepted, like we said. And also Moshe, in a sense, he did the same thing. He kind of had the same, he held himself as I'm an ani, because he really believed that everything that I have, my eyes, hands, feet, brain, everything really belongs to Hashem, right? So technically I didn't really own anything. This is why he never had any ghurur, means he never had any ego or haughtiness or anything like that. He held himself up, put his nose in the air. He never did that kind of stuff, because he has nothing. So Harav is saying if a person doesn't want to have that kind of ego, and we said all the kind of, previous shiuri and the things that ego brings, that person should sense themselves that they have nothing. That I have nothing. I'm nothing. I own nothing. Hashem gave me everything. That way he'll never have an ego and hold himself higher to other people. And no one really likes it when someone really has a high ego and that kind of stuff. So example, Harav said they give a hamon. It means let's say hamon. Not even like a worker. It's lower than a worker. It means mover. Like a hamon means I don't want to say slave, but it means whatever. It means a guy doing your work. Schlepper, perfect. That was a good way to put it. They give this hamon, this schlepper. He goes, he takes he takes it or he gives $10 million worth of jewels. And he goes, he starts putting his head in the air, looking at me, I'm rich, I own this, I own that. They look at him dude, you're the same hamon you were before. Now you just have 10 million, that doesn't even belong to you. It probably belongs to the owner. You're the same hamon, get out of here. So the same is that we should really believe that everything really comes from Hashem. It's not really ours. This doesn't really belong to us. All this that we have, even if a person is very rich, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all in Hashem. It all belongs to Hashem. If a person always has this in mind, this can lead to a person to also have the broken heart, to really, remember we said first, to really be happy they're able to pray, that Hashem is able to do teshuvah, and also too, compared to all the Gidolim, I'm a nothing. We see we have the world's biggest gadol, in my opinion. But anyways, we see the things that we do compared to us. But if a person davens like this, Harav is saying it's a guaranteed acceptance. Also, the Yetzer Hara sometimes comes to a person and says, who are you? You did so many sins. You broke this. You did Shabbat, whatever. Who are you to come and pray? When a Yetzer Hara comes to the mind and does that, the first thing that you do to answer that or to combat that is to say, yes, it's true. I did these kind of averot. Kind of do a mini teshuvah, say I did it, I regret it, I feel bad, I stopped doing it, whatever, do the steps of teshuvah, and then you become a Sadiq Gamor. This person, broken heart, did mini teshuvah for their sins. Now, whatever you pray for, it's a much, much, much more powerful prayer than just going in and just saying some words and walking out. Your prayers, will, Harav is saying, giving a 100% acceptance that it's going to get answered. So, a person should also think, about the positive points. Harav is saying, don't always hold yourself down, or when you get down, a way to bring yourself back up and have some chizuk, have some positive reinforcement, is basically to say, okay, yeah, I did a lot of sins, whatever, but at least I did some good, some mitzvah. I did a chesed, I helped out a friend, I went and I lifted some boxes for him, I don't know, whatever, anything. I gave some $10 to charity, whatever it may be. With that, a person should get chizuk, should get positive reinforcement from that, and use that to go through the steps that we spoke about, combat the Yetzer Hara, and it's a guarantee that your tefillot will get accepted.
باستی بدونیم که در کتاب‌های مقدس این نوشته شده که اگر انسان عملی کرده، گناهی کرده، خطایی کرده و بدون تشوبه میاد میثواه انجام میده، تورا میخونه، نیروهای ناپاک میان از این تورایی که خونده، از این میثواه انجام داده تغذیه میکنن و اینها تقویت میشن. تقویت که شدن میان انسان خطاکار میکنن. یعنی اگر انسان بدون تشوبه، بدون پشیمان شدن از گناه ها تورا میخونه، تفیلا میخونه، میثواه انجام میده، این باید میشه که نیروهای ناپاک بیان از این میثواه، از فیض میثواه تغذیه بکنن، تقویت بشن و انسان مسلط بشن و خطاکاری بکنن. پس راه چیه؟ پس چاره این که این نیروهای منفی از میثواه انسان، از طور انسان تغذیه نکنن، مستفید نشن چیه؟ که انسان قبل از هر مسوایی، هر طویلایی، هر آموختن تورا از تمام قلب از گناهاش از این که مرتکب پشیمان بشه و در شبات نه در روزهای هفته در از شبات و غیر از روش خودش و بیامیم طبیم یک متن کوتاه مختصر ویدیوی بگه حتی دیباشاتی من از این گناه که دارم تو کردم اگر نکرد من از این پشیمان هستم و من خطا کردم گناه کردم پشیمان هستم. همین این وقتی که انسان این طور میکنه این شد صدیق و دیگه نیروهای منفی اجازه ندارن که از این مثای این شخص از فیض این تغذیه بکنن. همینطور انسان اگر قبل از آموختن تورا طویلا به خودش این احساس بده که حاضره که برای توحید تقدیس هشم داره خودش را به 4 نوع اعدام بسپاره، سقیلا، سرفا، هرکهنت، این باید بشه گناه انسان کفاره بشه و نیروهای ناپاک نتونن از مثوای این تغذیه بکنن. این خیلی مهمه که انسان همیشه تورایی که میخونه، طویلایی که میخونه مثل انجام میده این با طوری باشه که نیروهای منفی نتونن از این تغذیه کنن. در این صورت این شخص دیگه نیروهای طمع با این کاری ندارن و نمیتونن مسلط بشن. اگر هم مسلط خیلی کم خیلی ندرت به خدا به حلش این روز به روز داره ترقی میکنه در تورا در مثوات. اینا خیلی مهمه که انسان باید موضوع بدونه.
So also Harav is kind of going Kabbalistic a little bit. He's going into really some deep points, but it's pretty interesting. Harav is saying, also it says in many holy books, I think Kabbalistic books, that if a person sinned and doesn't do teshuvah, doesn't do the 3 steps, admitting, regretting, and not doing or making a plan, or at least not doing whatever the sin anymore, without teshuvah, does any mitzvot or starts davening or starts praying. Niroi Tuma means like a negative spirit or a negative angel or like a Tuma type thing comes, and that negative angel feeds off of the mitzvot and the Torah that you're reading and you're doing. And it gets stronger and stronger from your mitzvot, from the Torah and the mitzvot that you're doing, and then they get power and they push you towards doing more sins. So it's kind of like a domino effect. It's like kind of putting a gun at yourself kind of type thing. So, to combat this, Harav is saying, before a person davens or does any other mitzvah, besides, obviously not on Shabbat, Yomim Tovim, Rosh Chodesh, we don't do this, but a person should do a small teshuvah. Chatati, aviti, I'm sorry, I admit, I feel bad, I regret, all these things, for all the sins that I've done. Therefore, these negative angels, with when a person doing that, when a person doing that, the person becomes to the level of a tzaddik when he does that teshuvah. Therefore, when he gets onto that level, those negative angels can't come and feed off the mitzvot that you're doing. So therefore, you're able to your prayers are much more highly accepted, and they're not feeding and not getting taken away by the negative angels. Also, before tefillah, if a person or any mitzvot really, if a person has in mind that for the honor of the Torah, for Hashem, that the person would give up their life for the 4 different ways of death back in the day. It would be it's jumping into a fire, stoning, strangling, jumping into fire, stoning, strangling, and slaughtering. Slaughtering is the 4th one. Basically, if you have in mind that you give up your life for Hashem in any one of those 4 ways, I don't know, apparently having this in mind kills those negative angels, and they have absolutely no power over you whenever you come to pray. To come, like we said, if you don't do this, if you don't do teshuvah, they come and they feed off the Torah and they get powerful and they push you towards sin. This doesn't happen, and your tefillah just skyrockets. Very, very high point that we should all have in mind before we do any mitzvah or any prayer. Questions.
I have a question connected to this. So during Amidah, sometimes we get inappropriate thoughts from previous sins, or we get kind of maybe distracted by Yitzhara.
Right.
I want to ask Harav, if if the Yetzer Hara is actually sending this to you, so you can do teshuvah during your prayer for those acts, and then so that in that moment you're doing teshuvah, so that what you did in the past, your avarot, will be cleansed. Is that kind of like the Yetzer Hara trying to help you do teshuvah? Not trying to help you, but either it'll distract you and you'll go down, or maybe it's there so that to remind you to teshuvah for those specific sins. And by doing that, will that stop coming towards you? Those inappropriate thoughts.
که با دارن میپرسن ما گفتیم که قبل از اینکه آدم تفیلا یا چیز بخونه یا تو فکرش تو ذهنش بگه که من بده این چهار سکیلا و این چیزا فکر کنم، یا مثلا تشوها کوچولو بکنه که وقتی تفیلا میخونه این فکرات تو مغز آدم نیاد. ولی بعضی موقع وقتی آدم لخش میکنه مثلا فکرای پوچ و بیخود از این چیزا میاد تو فکر آدم، آیا این اگه ما این فکر رو بکنیم و این تشوار رو بکنیم کمک میکنه که اون فکر رو هم نیاد تو مغز؟
کمک میکنه.
و دوما این فکر هم که میاد یتzer hara داره چیکار میکنه؟ داره میاد این کارا رو میکنه که ما تشوار بکنیم که ما بفهمیم که ما تفیلامون قبول نمیشه بعد بریم تشوار بکنیم، یا داره میکنه که ما رو پایین‌تر بیاره؟
نه، به خاطر گناهی که انسان حاکم شده این نیروهای تولید میشن. این نیروها هستن که میان برای انسان فکرای پوچا میارن. اگر انسان هیچ گناهی داشت، هیچ قبول نداشت، تفیلا از اول تفیلا تا آخر یک ثانیه هم فکر بی خود نمیکرد. انسان میخواد بدونه آیا گناه داره نداره، صدیقی تورش چطوره. اگر میبینه که در تفیلاش هیچ فکر بی خود میکنه خودش به حال صدیقه. اگر میره هر دو ثانیه فکر میاد او چقدر عوانت داره، باید خیلی تشویق بکنه.
Okay, so the answer to the question is the thoughts that come into a person's brain. I thought it was the answer. Anyways, that's nothing to do with that. Harav is saying the thoughts that come into a brain. First of all, having in mind those 4 things, that I would jump into a fire, stone, strangled, slaughter for Hashem, that will help eliminate the force. Also, by doing the teshuvah, chatati aviti, admitting the sins, regretting, and all that thing, that will prevent also and help prevent those thoughts coming into a person's brain. So when that happens, I asked Harav, I said, is that the Yetzer Hara? It has nothing to do with that. He said it has to do with the person's sins. Whenever you sin, what happens? We create a negative, I don't know how you explain it. It means like a force, spiritual something. Evil force. Evil force. And that force, it comes to take revenge. It means like it avenges itself for what you created me. I don't want to be created. Therefore, I'm coming after you. And it comes into your brain. And when you're trying to dive in, all kinds of nonsense stuff comes into your head. Anything, any nonsense stuff. We said this before. Any nonsense stuff comes in. So too the bad stuff. Like really bad stuff. All that stuff is like, all that the sins that a person did comes into the person's brain and prevents it. Because when you have these thoughts and you're not having real kavanah, your thoughts, your prayers to get answered, the chances is much lower. So
you become broken-hearted, and then your tefillah is accepted more.
That's the key to not do the sin in the first place. But yeah, Harav said the whole point was if we have a broken heart, we have in mind those 4 things. We also do the little bit of the teshuvah before. Yeah, then the power of those negative forces is not that strong, and we can pray. And Harav said, if you really want to find out who's a tzaddik, no, go daven. When you start davening, if you don't have one negative thought in your brain or anything that's not related to anything coming to your brain, he says, chosh b'hada that person. That person is a tzaddik. But if you go every other second, this thought comes into your brain. That thought comes to your brain. He's like, you have a lot of work to do. Get started on the teshuvah.
How do you know where to start? Like with teshuvah, sometimes you don't know where to start. Sometimes a particular thing to work on doesn't come to mind. Sometimes you can't even think of something. Not that, God, you think that you're perfect, but like you don't even know
where to start.
What do you do? Where do you do that?
که بودم شخصی دارم میپرسن که وقتی آدم میخواد تشویق بکنه اصلا بعضی موقع خودش گیج میشه، اصلا نمیدونه از کجا شروع کنه، اصلا نمیدونه چی بگه، از کجا شروع کنه، از چه آنیش تشویق کنه، بعد از آدم از کجا شروع کنه.
از اون بین از این همه گناه که داره کدام از همه سخت‌تر هستن، سنگین‌تر هستن، از اون شروع بکنه.
پس مثلا شب
هیلو شبات مثلا.
So the answer is, Harav is saying a person should search and find the heaviest sins that have the heaviest transgressions and start with those. Example, Harav is saying is like Shabbat. eternal covenant, so on and so forth. So like, for example, that would be something to start doing teshuvah and working on first. So basically, look at the severity. Go from the heavy ones first. What's that?
In Eliyahu, talks about in the section in Harvard, very big on learning that. So when it says talks about, it's like something like, I don't know, it's segulot about your sins being erased. It's the same as Yeshua with the song, or Shir Hashem, all these things. Segulot erase your sins. So how's part of like, is it a metaphor, or is it something that actually does erase? And if it does, then just saying as Yeshua with a melody erases all your sins, or Shir Hashem the entire week. under 17 verses erases all your averot. So how's that?
کبال راب میگن تو سفر پلیوت نوشته که آدم شخص اگه مثلا شیر شیرین یا آزیاشی با آهنگ مثلا با شیرا بخونه اون موقع تمام آموناش پاک میشه و اگه اینطوره پس ما چرا باید این کارا رو بکنیم؟ ما مگه نمیتونیم فقط مثلا آزیاشی بخونیم با شیرا یا مثلا شیرا شیرین و آمونمون پاک بشه؟
بله ببینید این جواب اینه که در کفارت امانات مراحل زیاد داره، یعنی هر امانی تا اینکه کاملا پاک بشه، تا کاملا بخشیده بشه چندین مراحل رو طی بکنه.
یعنی سختی؟ یعنی سختی ایسونی باید طی کنه؟
بله، این که میگن که آدیشیر کفارت اماناته درسته، ولی از هر امانی مثلا میگیم 1/10 پاک میشه، 1/10 یا 1/100 نمیدونم چقدر پاک میشه، ولی 1/100 1/1000 همینطورم شاید چیزایی که میگن اگر این کار بکنه امان پاک میشه. پس اگر پس چرا باید کفارت امانات برای چی باید تعیین کنه، برای چی باید هر تکنیک برای چی میگن انسان بیاد از شیر بخونه با کمانه و با خوشحالی باشه دی تموم شد امانه پاک شد.
So Harav answered the question very nicely. He said basically that there's a lot of because of a person's own sins, there's certain levels of kaparat avanot, meaning hardships, atonements, hardship also that a person needs to go through depending on the sin until the sin gets completely erased, right? So it's true there's segulot of like singing Azi Ashir with tunes or Shir Shirim with the tunes or the whatever. That might erase like 1/10 of the avon of the sin, or 1/3. It's hard to tell exactly, but it's not going to erase it completely. Or else there wouldn't be all these tikkunim, lashon chachamim, fasting, tzedakah, all these things that we know that really erase sins. What would it be for? I would just go on the streets, start singing Azi Ashir, get in there and start going. Obviously, that's not the answer. It really goes to a bigger picture that it really depends, first of all, on the person's sins, the severity, the level, how much kaparat avonot a person needs to go through, suffering, atonement, all that stuff. And then after that, basically the heavy hitters of this is to do the things that we said, to pray the way that we said, to also, there's fasting and there's a bunch of different tikkunim also. But yeah, those segulot, don't get tricked and think those will solve your problem. You don't need to fast, you don't need to do this, you need to do that, you just sing and you're good to go. Is there any women here?
Any questions on the side?
Yes. How do we know that our teshuvah
is accepted? کبال راب میخوام بدونم ما چطوری میدونیم که طرف ناشیم که ما تشوهمون قبول بشه. قبول شده.
ما چطور بدونیم
که تشوهمون قبول شده؟
بله. اینو جواب سوال کردیم، من جواب دادم که
اون دفعه گفتیم
اگر مثلا فرض کنیم دزدی میکرده، این تجربه کرده همون شد دیگه، تصمیم گرفته دیگه اصلا دزدی نکنه، ولی حس میکنه یه طرح میاد و این میخواد گوله بزنه که بعدم دزدی بکنه، ولی خود جلوش خود میگه دزدی نمیکنه، ولی بعد چند روز دیگه دوباره یه طرح میاد و اینا بهش میخواد گوله بزنه فریب بده که برات به دزدی بکنه، این خود نگه میداره دزدی نمیکنه. تا وقتی که این احساس دزدی کردن در خودش احساس میکنه، این هنوز یا این آبونه این پاک نشده. چه موقع پاک میشه؟ وقتی که هیچ گونه تمایل و تمایل به این گناه نداره. در این صورت این معلومه که ابان پاک شده، چون تا وقتی که ابان پاک نشده بخاطر این ابان یک نیروی موذی و خطا کننده منحرف کننده ایجاد میشه که میخواد انسان بیاد باید گول بزنه که بعد این اونا بکنه، بعد اینو بکنه. انسان باید چکار کنه؟ خود نگه داره نکنه. وقتی خود نگه داشت این نیروی منحرف ضعیف میشه. 10% نیروی میره پایین. دوباره میاد انسان میخواد بادر کنه درزی بکنه، انسان خود نگه میداره 10% میره پایین، همینطور میره تا اینکه تموم میشه، از بین میره.
So the question was asked, how do we know that if when we do teshuvah that's accepted and our teshuvah is 100% complete? Harav answered this previously also, but he said that basically whenever a person gets the yetzer to do, for example, to steal, right? To steal, it's a big sin, and the person fights with the yetzer hara and doesn't steal. The power that the yetzer hara has over the person to do this, let's say it was at 100%, pushing you to do that, you really are dying to steal whatever it was. After you fight the Yetzer Hara and you don't do that sin, now the power of the Yetzer Hara, because of all the battle that you had with the Yetzer Hara, drops to 80%. So now your want and your push that you want to go do that sin of stealing or whatever it is, stealing for example, drops down to 80. Then you fight with it again, you don't, it goes down to 60. Then you fight, 40, 30, so on and so forth. And Harav also said previously that sometimes even if you fall, and let's say after the 1 or 2 times of fighting you end up stealing again, don't think that you go back to, the Yetzer Hara's power goes back up to 100, you go back to 0. No. It's like taking 3 steps forward, 1 step backward. If you're always ahead of the game. After doing teshuvah, you're never back to where you started. Just as a FYI. So then, how do we know that the person's teshuvah is completely accepted? Whenever you have 0 desire and push a yetzer to do that sin of stealing anymore. Whenever it's 0 to you, that's how you know your teshuvah is 100% accepted.
Question?
وقت هست برای سوال دیگه؟
بله.
So it says, persons that adapt between person to person, that Shuvah admitted the wrong, taking the step not to do it again, and apologized, but the hurt is still there in the person that you hurt. Now what can a person do?
So you're saying a person did a sin?
Did a sin, he apologized, did Shuvah.
So a person or is it against Hashem?
Against another person. And the hurt is still there.
That person still is like has something against you?
Yeah.
What to do now?
They're still hurt from what you've done. So what can you do?
And that person forgave you?
Didn't forgive you.
Didn't forgive you?
Or they've forgiven you, but they still. Well, they've forgiven you, but they're still lingering pain.
که رب اگه مثلا یه کسی آمون میکنه به یه دوستش یه کاری میکنه نمیدونم یه کاری و دوست ناراحت میشه بعد از یه مدتی میاد میخیلا میپرسه ولی دوستت میگه من مؤاخذت میکنم ولی ته قلبش راستی هنوز دلگیره آره میگه من مؤاخذت میکنم ولی دلگیره. بعد اون آدم در اون لحظه چیکار کنه دیگه؟ مخیلا خاص از طرف ولی هنوز ته قلبش یه ذره دلگیره. چیکار کرد؟
این کار بکنه که واقعا از این دلجویی بکنه ببینه بهش اگر بهش سرمه داره پولش بده تاوانش بده پولش بده هزینه‌اش بده چی بهش ضرر زده و کاری که دیگه این هیچ گونه دلگیری و کدورت در این باقی نمونه.
So Harav is saying basically to kind of go above and beyond for their friend. If you did something you really want to gain their forgiveness, their real forgiveness, let's say you stole from them, pay back. Let's say you damaged something in front of theirs, fix the damage. Going above and beyond. Go take care of whatever you did. You broke something of theirs, go fix it, go replace it. Take that extra step. Once you do that, they'll kind of naturally feel a little bit less, and hopefully like that, that'll be enough for the person to forgive you 100%. No more questions? Ladies' side, no more questions? Okay, Hazak Baruch. You have a question? Ask.
Well, just one continue on Andrew's, Shlomo's question about where to start to identify. Shabbat's a great example, right? Because that's
right.
I think the Chafetz Chaim said that life's blessings comes from how
Zohar
keep Shabbat.
Zohar, also goes really deep into that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So how do we Mika started learning Gemara. There's learning all different kinds of things that I've never even thought to.
Yeah.
How far do we need to?
Search?
Yeah. Or if we, what's the best place to start the search? Is it Shabbat?
You're saying except like the big ones, Shabbat, kosher, tefillin.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure there's worlds in itself within Shabbat, kosher, and film.
Yeah.
Is there a certain recommended place? Is that the place we should start looking?
کود رب ما گفتیم کسی که داره آمون میکنه میخواد تشویق بکنه نمیدونه از کجا اصلا از کجا شروع بکنه بره دنبال اون آمونایی که از همه سنگین ترن از اون شروع کنه ولی مثلا هنوزم مثلا نمیدونن مثلا فرض کنیم شبات انقدر راجع به شبات هست حلاخات هست اصلا از کجا شروع کنه چیه شبات شروع کنه مثلا از کجا اصلا خودشو اصلا نمیدونه از کجا شروع کنه
یواش حلاخات یاد بگیره حلاخات گورر، حلاخات بیشول، حلاخات قوانین بیشول، قوانین پاک کردن خوراکی، قوانین گفتن بگوی که چیزا مجاز اصول گفتن مقصه.
So Harav is saying let's start with like the within the subcategory of Shabbat, there were really heavy malachas that actually apply to us. Cooking, bishul, put a blech, hot plate. Can you put a food? Can I put a food? You have to put a timer. You want to warm up liquid. All those kind of things. And then I'll go to next to, for example, telling a goy what to do, what not to do. Muksa. Am I using this pen? Can I move it? Is it considered muksa? All that kind of stuff. Zoom question?
The Zoom question, I'm going to say his name, Dr. Kimia.
Go it up. Okay, so I'll...
So Dr. Kimia.
It's going to be a good question.
We know that Talmud Torah can get Quran. So how is it possible that the actual study of the Torah that includes everything is actually strengthening the other side when we sin? If you know Talmud Torah can get Quran,
right?
How is it possible that the actual study of Torah that includes everything strengthens the other side, Sitra Achra?
Without doing teshuvah? If you don't do teshuvah. که بالا رب ما میدونیم که نوشته که تامو تورا کنگت کلان پس چطور ممکنه که ما وقتی آیا آدم شخص تشویق نکنه تورا بخونه چطوری ممکنه که اون طرف قوی تر بشه و نیروهای تو ما از این تورا خوندن قوی تر بشن چطوری ممکنه
چرا اینا این قدرت دارن که از میثوای انسان تغذیه بکنن تورا تلمیت بالله میثوات
حتی هم تورا کنگت کلام از همه چی بالاتره
بله این تورا خوندن بعد با شرایط مخصوص باشه انسان با تجربه بکنه با تجربه با ترک کردن از گناهان پشیمانی از گناهات بعد تورا بخونه اگر نه این تورا این مثل چی مونه مثل یک اصل خیلی ضعیفه که نمیتونه این درشکر به حرکت بده این ولی با تجربه کردن این تورایی که میخونه خیلی قویه و میتونه بر غریزه بد مسلط بشه انسان خطا نکنه.
So the answer is that Harav is saying that learning Torah is the highest of them all 100%. It's equal to all, making shalom, all that stuff. But these evil forces that a person creates from their sins, they have the ability and the power to come and even Torah learning, which is equivalent to all chesed, all that stuff, to intercept that and to kind of take that power from there. So it's not, Torah learning doesn't mean just like, let's learn Torah. It means really, first of all, doing teshuvah. Going in with asking, admitting I did wrong, did sins, so on and so forth. Having in mind those four things that we said. Really going in with pure mind, teshuvah, those four things. Then those evil forces don't have that ability to come and take the Torah, but it is. They have. Second part of the question? Another question?
Yeah. Can I ask this?
Yeah.
So does that mean it's dangerous to read Zohar if you didn't completely do Teshuvah? Before you start learning and read Zohar, should you first do Teshuvah before you start learning Torah or Zohar?
که داره پس ما گفتیم که اگه آدم تشویق نکنه قبل از اینکه تورا بخونه وای که چقدر از اون طرف هم میتونن چیز بگیرن ازش پس زهار خوندن قلب خمر زهار خوندن پس چقدر بیشتر و
بله
خیلی آدم
بله
خطرناکه یعنی اگه آدم تشویق نکنه
بله اگر انسان تور بکنه تشویق این ممکنه روز به روز بره پایین بنابراین این هستن که اونا جایی هستن که ظاهر میکنن که میشین تجربه نمیکنن اینها نه تنها که بیشتر انجام نمیدن بلکه برعکس دارن میرن پایین
یعنی با تورا خوندن دارن میرن پایین به خاطر اینکه تشوا نکردن.
بله.
Dang.
So is there a small teshuva you can say? Is there a pasuk you can say before you start learning that could?
Can you elaborate on that first before you?
Yeah. Do the translation.
Let me do the transition. Yeah. And a couple more questions. One more question. I think that's it. And then okay. So anyway, so the question was asked. So So learning Torah, if we don't do teshuvah, we don't have the mind of those things or whatever. If we don't do teshuvah before we learn, it can actually be against the person, right? So we asked, what about? We said, what about learning the Zohar? Because the Zohar is Zohar HaKadosh, and it's
recording in progress.
And it's so holy. So I asked Harav. Harav said, yeah, a person needs to be very, very, very careful learning Zohar. So much so doing teshuvah before he learns. He said a person can be thinking they're learning and they're going up, and actually what they're doing is actually digging themselves lower and lower and lower if they don't do the teshuvah before they learn the Zohar. Follow-up question? What was it you wanted to add?
What should you learn? What teshuvah?
Is there a way to say like a small teshuvah before you start learning Zohar or Torah?
Like a specific?
To ensure that you're not reading for the wrong, it doesn't go to the wrong side of the Zahra?
کبال رب یه مثلا یه پاسخی هست که آدم بخونه یا همینطوری به خودش تو ذهن خودش تو فکر خودش بگه من آمون کردم، من پشیمون هستم، دیگه نمی‌کنم، یا یه چیز بخصوصی هست که بخونه همینطوری
من از گناه کردم پشیمون هستم و
مثلا از کل گناهایی که کردم همینطوری
همین
لازم نیست دونه به دونه
نه همین گناه‌ها
just to have in my all the sins that I did I regret I made doing all of them I feel bad for doing them like a generalization type of thing.
Great.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So Kriyat Hashema that we do at night, that it has the Tachanunim.
Yes.
Does it consider to be
a teshuvah
for like for the whole day or for the morning that we start praying?
که دارم میپرسن ما شبا که کریات شما میخوریم طرف ناشین ما کریات شما میخوریم شبا اونجا یه تخمون داره یا آنا داره اون آنایی که ما میخونیم الان نه یعنی بعد از روش الان تخمونی که میخونیم مثلا حساب میشه برای تفیل شاخری روز بعدش که ما میخوایم بخونیم یا باز دوباره بعد روز شاخری دوباره ما چیز بگیم دوباره ما تخنونی بگیم یه
ویدیو بگیم
یه ویدیو بگیم آره
خب انسان قبل از هر تفیلای شهرید من حربین قبل از شروع کنه به رحوم یا خوندن قربانات این میگه من از همه گناهان پشیمان هستم و انسان میشه بعد در حال تشویق باشه بله.
A person should always be in the thought of in the state of doing teshuvah. So yeah, before Shachar Mincha Arvid, before the prayers, a person should definitely do that mini teshuvah and سوال بیشتر هست اوکیه؟
یه سوال.
Okay, last question.
From Dr. Kimian again. How can one possibly be without sin or knowledge of the sin that one has done? How can one possibly be without sin or knowledge of sin that one has done? How does it be without sin, basically? Or he doesn't know that sometimes you sin, you don't even feel it until you cut somebody off.
So how can you do teshuvah for that, you're saying?
Like, how can possibly, basically the question is, how can a person be without sin? There are only 4 people in history living without sin. Benjamin, Isha.
So how does a person do...
How can a person be without sin?
Okay, got the question. And this is the last question. Kabbalah Rab, داریم میپرسیم که آدم گفتیم که تشوامون که قبول بشه اصلا دیگه خواستی اون رو دیگه نداره ولی آدم چطوری میتونه بدون آمون باشه؟ آدم چطوری میتونه اصلا بدون هیچ آزمونی باشه؟ داوید ملک موشه ربینو همه اصلا آدم مگه میشه به اونجا به اون درجه برسه؟
یعنی سوال شما چی؟
سوال ما آدم چطوری میتونه تشوال 100% برای همه آموناشون بکنه؟
خب این یواش این درجه عبدال گفتم هر وقت که بدون میگه با بر خودش قبول میکنه که دیگه این قبول نکنه این یکی از عوانات یکی از اینا پاک بشه کم بشه.
So it's like a process.
از هر گناهی 1000 مثلا اینطوری.
So basically to conclude, it's basically a process where if you every time you do teshuvah, basically a little bit more of that sin gets erased. Your Yetzer Hara becomes a little weaker, and it's a slowly but surely process. Eventually, don't look at it as a big picture, just take it step by step to move forward one step at a time. Okay guys, Hazaku Baruch.
Yes,